as I make this video at the end of 2025, seems like more and more regular folks like you and me are tuning in to the benefits of shooting suppressed with a silencer / suppressor, whatever you want to call it, on your gun. And I think starting in 2026, you're going to be dropping the $200 tax stamp, so it's going to be even more popular as an add-on, an option to make it safer for your hearing. It significantly reduces the sound signature. In my experience, it doesn't make them Hollywood quiet. You're not going to get the thunk, thunk, thunk sound. It sounds like a gun. It's just not quite as loud. But that being said, it also has some kind of compromises, some challenges. And one of the challenges that you might or might not face putting a suppressor on a semi-auto rifle like this Midwest Industries 308 is potentially, not always, but you could have issues with the suppressor for a couple of reasons. One of them is certainly you're going to get more gas blowback through the port, almost always, because the way a suppressor works is, right now you got a big open hole here, but then you have a suppressor that kind of traps and redirects and modifies the gas flow out of there, and it certainly restricts it some. So it's got to go somewhere, so it comes back through the gas tube, which feeds up here and pushes your bolt back and cycles your action. But more gas is coming through, some more gas is coming out here. It also makes your bolt cycle a lot faster, which could lead to cycling feed issues and performance issues. I've got other rifles with silencers on them and no issues. This one did have some occasional performance issues when I put a silencer on it. It runs like a sewing machine without it, but when I put the can on it, it started having intermittent feeding issues. So the most common solution to that is an adjustable gas system. And man, if you're like me, just a regular folk, that sounds like a very complicated, complex thing. How hard is it going to be? I'm going to have to take my rifle to a gunsmith or what to fix it? Well, in today's video, we're going to take a look at what was recommended to me, a Riflespeed modular gas control system, and just see how complicated it is for a regular folk like me to put it on, to change it out. So that's what we're going to do coming up next here on Survival on Purpose. Welcome back to Survival on Purpose. My name is Brian. Thanks for joining me for today's almost certainly demonetized video about how to install an adjustable gas control. And in this case, we're going to put it on this Midwest Industries 18-inch 308 semi-automatic rifle that I had just a couple of intermittent issues with, and I reached out to the folks at Midwest, and they were so helpful. They sent me a whole new buffer system, and said try this first. I tried that; it really didn't help. So they recommended a Riflespeed Adjustable Gas Control. Said sometimes that just happens, especially with 308s. They're pretty finicky to begin with. So that being said, we're going to take a look at that and see how easy it is to install this in just a minute. But first, as usual, today's words of wisdom from the Bible. Today's wisdom is from the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 24 in the NLT version. And here we go. Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. Sounds like good common sense to me. And I got to say a big thank you to my friends at Hog Holsters. Hog Holsters is the most comfortable, most concealable holster I've ever tried. I've been using them for going on 10 years now. I've taken my Hog Holsters through all sorts of classes, running, rolling, crawling, no issues whatsoever with the retention of the holster onto my body or the retention of the pistol in the holster. They're just absolutely the most comfortable, most concealable holster I've ever tried and ever used. Every single Hog holster is 100% made in the USA down to the screws, and every single Hog holster is 100% handcrafted to fit your specific pistol model. They have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different models available. There's no one size fits all at Hog holsters. So Hog holsters, helping Americans wear guns. Check them out. And there's a code. If you use the code Survival on Purpose, all one word, you'll be glad you did. So thanks again to John at Hog Holsters for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get to talking about this here Riflespeed modular gas control. And like I said, I was having occasional cycling issues as soon as I put a suppressor on it. No other issues other than that. I reached out to him, as I said, and Sean at Midwest was so helpful. He said, look, without you sending it back from me really looking at it, I think if you put a Riflespeed gas control on it, it's going to solve all your problems. Those things are slick. So I got one, and we're going to put it on here, and without further ado, that's what we're going to do. So first thing you're going to do, you're going to have to take some measurements to get the right one. And one of the measurements you got to have is from your receiver here to the gas block, which is up in here. So to facilitate that, all that, and demonstrating that, we'll go ahead and take the we're going to go ahead and take the handguard off where you can see all that stuff. Okay, as always, the very first thing you want to do before doing any sort of maintenance or work on a firearm is make sure it is not loaded. So we got the bolt open here. Verify it with your finger and with your eyeballs. It needs a little clean in there, that there's no rounds in there. Okay, so that's done. Now, just going to close the bolt, and we're going to remove the upper from the rifle. Now we're going to take the handguard off. This is Midwest Industries handguard because it's a Midwest Industries rifle. And your handguard may be different. You might have a different kind of handguard. On this one, inside there's a little index key that comes out, and it only goes in one way, and it fits up in there. So save that, and then take that off. And then also there's this little keyway thing here. It's got the little tabs that go in the groove. You're going to want to save that, and then just slide this completely off. There you go. So that's what she looks like now. So this is your gas block. This is your gas tube. To order the correct Riflespeed modular gas control and new gas tube, because you're going to need a new gas tube also, because you see how that one is kind of angled. The Riflespeed takes a straight gas tube. So, and they're like 15 bucks. They're not crazy expensive. But to get the correct one, you're going to have to take some measurements. And the first measurement you're going to need, at least one of the measurements, it's critical, is from the receiver, which is here, to the front of this gas block. And I've got it like 9 and maybe 5/16 inches. So you're gonna need that. You put all the stuff into a little form on their website, and it'll tell you what length tube you need. In my case, it's a mid-length. Okay, the next dimension you need is from the receiver to the end of the barrel, and this is the end of the barrel because here's the end of the barrel. I've got a flash hider on here now. It came on it, but the barrel is actually here. So it's an 18-inch barrel, and I already had that. I knew that's what it was when I got it. And then you need to know your gas block ID. That's 0.75 inches in most cases. That's very common. And again, my specs for the rifle told me what that was. If you don't know what that is, then you might need some calipers to measure that. But you need to know that because there are a couple other sizes that are not as common, but they're available. So they have all those. And then you also need to know your handguard length. That's 15 inches. Because what you have to do is you have to make sure that this it's going to take the place of the gas thing here, right? But it's got to extend out enough past the handguard that you can actually get it, because what you're going to do, you're going to adjust it by turn it like that. So it adjusts the amount of gas that goes into the tube. So those are the measurements you're going to need to correctly order the right parts. What other stuff are you going to need? Tools and otherwise. So you're going to need whichever gas control you ordered. The new straight gas tube, in which comes a little roll pin, because if you'll notice right here, there's a pin. This thing is pinned in there, and this one has a little pinhole as well. You're going to need some iHeat Loctite style stuff. This is 620 green. There's other stuff, other brands. This is just what I chose. You're going to need some tools. They say you need a 3/32 inch hex wrench. You need a 5/64 inch roll pin holder. You need a 5/64 inch roll pin punch. You need a hammer. You need a bench block or a vise with non-marring jaws. Locking compound. You might need a torch to heat this up to get the old one off. And another armor's block, bench block, and all this stuff. So I believe in having the right tool for the right job, but I also believe in improvise, adapt, and overcome when you don't. So they recommend a specific armor's bench block. We're going to use this and just improvise, adapt, and overcome with it if I can hold it in place. That's just to put the little pin in there. And I'll show you that as we go. Once you've got your parts, you've got all your tools and everything, the next step is going to be to remove the old one so you can install the new one. And you're going to want to, if you have any kind of a muzzle device on here, you're going to want to remove that as well, because it's going to interfere with your ability to slide this new one, the old one off and the new one on. So we're going to take that off of here for now. I doubt if you will be able to do that by hand, but I already loosened it up using a couple of nice redneck tools. But what we're going to have to take these set screws out. And that's where we're going to determine whether or not we're going to need some heat. So your sizes may vary. This one is a 3/32. Let's see how tight. Okay, they're coming out then. Okay, not too bad. And hopefully we should be able to just put those over there, slide this thing off of here. There she goes. Should all come out as one piece. And there it is. And then we have a dimple there, which is good. I was checking, if you have a dimple there, it's going to make it a lot easier to line everything up. You can see the little dimple there. So we're just going to put this aside. We're not going to need it probably ever again. And we'll get the new gas tube, and it's going to go up here, and we got a little pin right there. But then this hole here is where your gas goes in. So the gas comes up through the top of the barrel, through this hole here, into this hole here, and goes back into the receiver to contact your bolt carrier group. The next thing is to go ahead and put this in here and really make sure, look at it, make sure it's lined up. So if you got your pinhole lined up right here, you can see through it. As long as you don't have the hole in the tube on top, you're going to be lined up. There's not a lot of play there. That pinhole is going to go in. So as long as you make sure this hole is facing this part, and you got your pinholes lined up, which you can really see that pretty easily. If my camera will focus in, so you can see in here, you can see completely through that little pinhole, which means that in here, you really can't see it. I can barely see it, even with a flashlight, but the gas should be lined up. Well, now we're going to do our absolute best to put the pin in without jacking stuff up. Here's the pin. And an Allen wrench that we may or may not need. The set screws we're definitely going to need. So there's this little pin. They also give you an extra plunger, just in case you need one ever. So we're going to take this roll pin. Okay, to be fair, they did recommend getting the block, and I didn't see that until I'd already ordered it, and I was bound and determined I'm going to get this done. So this might be a good opportunity to have two people, but I don't, so we're going to endeavor to persevere. And I think I got it pretty solid there now. That'll be helpful. Put this pin in the hole, so to speak. And we got her started. Okay, so now that she's started in there, let's make sure we're still lined up on the other side. Looks like we are. Now we should be able to get this thing rock and roll. Now, to be fair, they said to use a big old punch to do this. I'm going to drive it as far as I can without the punch because I don't see a reason not to. And I do have a hard head. Pretty close. All right, so that's good. They give you another pin, by the way, and you see there's a hole here. So for the most secure installation of a gas block, you can kind of machine this out here a little bit for a groove in it, so that between these holes, so that you can put that pin in there. This one wasn't pinned from the factory. I'm not going to pin it now, so we're going to leave that alone. The next step is going to be to install this thing. So we're going to put it across here like this, all the way here till we get to the hole in the receiver. Push it all the way up. It fits great. So now you can see the marks that were inside from the old one. Hopefully you can see those in there, but there's a little dimple there for that one. That should help us line this thing up perfectly with the gas tube. If you do have the dimples, that's good. If not, you're going to have to see it. And however you can do that, you're going to have to look inside there with a flashlight, see if you can find it. But you should be, if your old one had screws in there, you should be able to see definitely where the screws were. So what we're going to do is take one of the new screws to fit they give you the wrench that goes with it. And we're just going to get it started to kind of hold this thing in place so it's not moving around. I'm going to do the rear one because that has the dimple. And that'll let us put this thing where it needs to be exactly. And then we can go ahead and Loctite the front one and then take it back out and do the Loctite the rear one. So I'm just going to make sure I've got it oriented properly. and just put this one in, snug it up so it doesn't move, so it's not keep moving around. Right? We don't want them to keep moving around. And then look inside at the gas tube. See the gas tube in there. Make sure it's the right length, and it is the same length. About halfway through that little depression there, that little half moon there. This was what I was gauging with, so it's correct. Now we're gonna take the other one that we did not lose, thankfully, and get our green Loctite, high temp Loctite. We're going to put some of this on here. Put the screw in the hole, like so. And we're just going to crank her down. We can crank her down now, no problem. When you start feeling the thing bend, it's probably tight enough. I don't have a torque spec for it. Don't know what it should be torqued at. I don't think this can be too tight, as long as you don't break it off. All right. But this thing's bending pretty good, so I'd say that's good. Now, we're going to take the first one out, the rear one, and put some Loctite on it. There we go. And that one seats a little bit deeper because it did have a dimple, which is good. That's a sign of a quality rifle, if they got a dimple in there. And Midwest Industries don't make no junk, as they say in Georgia. So, there's that. The next step is going to be to put the handguard back on. And there you have it. There's the gas control here. So, Chuck Norris doesn't get frostbite. Chuck Norris bites frost. Okay, once you've got everything put back together, the next step is going to be to take this thing to the range or wherever you shoot and figure out what your adjustment needs to be for whatever configuration you're going to be using. So that's what we're going to do. Show you that coming up next year. But first, let me see if I can give you a close-up of this thing installed so you kind of get an idea of what we're doing here. Okay, hopefully we're focused here. So you see that little knurled wheel there, notched wheel with the numbers on it? That is the Riflespeed adjustment knob, and you just turn it with your hand back and forth. And you can also see that in this particular case, it barely sticks out because this is an 18-inch barrel with a pretty long handguard. Okay, hopefully you can see that clearly, and if so, I'm sure you saw that the gas control knob only sticks out about that far past the handguard, and that's the longest model that they offer out of several different lengths. And honestly, I didn't have any issues with it. With my hands, no tools, I was able to just turn it, adjust it. Even with the barrels hot, if it got really hot, I'd probably want to put some gloves on. But it has enough tension that it won't bump itself out, but it's still, you can turn it with your hands. Most people can. So anyway, since the cycling problems I was experiencing were with suppressed fire, not unsuppressed, so I just start with the silencer, and I used this one that I tested it on before. It's the Anachoic 30 cal, and with a flow-through end cap on it. Took it down to the range, did the 1 round in a magazine thing, started at 6 and went all the way down to 1, and honestly, it locked back on every one of them. But since the problems I was having weren't due to not enough gas, but too much, and they were also just intermittent throughout a magazine, I loaded up several rounds in a magazine and started going back up in pressure. When I did this, I found out that it definitely had some issues at 4, and at 3, it might have had some issues. It was close. So I took it back down to 2 and put, I don't know, half a dozen rounds to it, a dozen rounds to it, no issues whatsoever. So my setting for this silencer right now, we're going to run on 2, and if I experience any issues with that, then I still can adjust it, but I think that's right. And I did the same thing with this is actually not a flash hider like I called it yesterday, but a muzzle brake, but I did the same thing with just a muzzle brake on it, unsuppressed, and I found out my number is 5 on that one. So to hopefully pack all this up into one little ball, bottom line, the Riflespeed gas control, adjustable gas control, solved my reliability issues, my performance issues with cycling on this very well made, very nice 308 AR-10. And to be fair, James Yeager told me a long time ago that AR-10s are notoriously finicky, and even good ones, and this is no shade on the folks at Midwest Industries because they make good stuff, and this is a good one. I've got a couple of their 5.56s that are like sweet, and they just run like a sewing machine. But I digress. Bottom line, Riflespeed fix the problem. And if you're having issues with gas, even if you're not having cycling issues, if you just want to minimize the amount of blowback that comes out of the ejection port here, certainly wouldn't, this wouldn't be a bad thing to have on your rifle. I guess that's what I can say. And they're not paying me. I don't work for them. I actually bought this thing. So, there's no skin in this game other than hopefully to be helpful if it is helpful. So, and I hope it has been helpful. I hope it's been somewhat interesting and maybe even slightly entertaining. And I sincerely appreciate you watching Survival on Purpose. Remember, survival's not an accident, so be prepared. I'll see you next time.